all, welcome to Ideas to Action. We're kicking off with today's session on that Power of Perseverance with Jonathan Brown. Just to let you know that this session is being recorded and will be available later on our platform. Please keep yourself on mute. You will automatically be muted as soon as you join this meeting. We do want you to speak, but we'll call your name out so you can unmute to participate and ask questions. Feel free to use the chat functionality to ask any questions and say hi to us. Follow us on our Instagram, which is on the screen below.
So welcome everyone that's joined. Welcome to Ideas to Action Entrepreneurial Day. So we are kicking off today with the Power of Perseverance, which I will be starting, and we have John Coker from Deloitte, which he'll be contributing and sharing some of his stories regarding his journey in his workplace and some of the situations that he's had to overcome. Myself, Jonathan Brown, I'm currently a consultant for an Italian firm called TechRain, and they've actually subcontracted me out to Vodafone Group in Paddington in London. As you can see, there's a little bit of blurb about me, my experience, and some of the things that I specialize in. But I'll go into the next couple of pages, which will go into that in a little bit more detail. Luckily, these are some of the clients that I've actually worked with across the last 10 to 11 years, Microsoft to the Telegraph, Google, Vodafone. I've worked really hard to manage to get my foot through some of these doors, some of these really big businesses in the global industry of digital. But it wasn't always, easy, but I'm very happy to have, learned a lot from working in these businesses. So this is my working timeline. As you can see, I actually started in 2008, which seems like a lifetime ago now, working in eCRM, with Nectar, which is in essence is email marketing. Then I moved on to project management at Microsoft for about 3.5 years. Then I worked in PPC analytics. I'd say from 2016 to 2018, that's when I worked heavily in data. And then I moved across into MarTech at the Telegraph newspaper. And now I'm currently at Vodafone as a personalization and MarTech consultant. But with that being said, I now want to sort of go into the perseverance conversation, and I always like to start with this, the actual words, what does it mean? The title of this presentation is called The Power of Perseverance, but what does the word mean by definition? And it's persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. Some of the synonyms: persistence, tenacity, determination, resolve, resolution, stay in power, purposefulness. These are things that are overlooked in, today's current ways of working, and the way Western world is very fast paced. It's always on and it's always now, but we don't really talk about going the hard route and taking our time and producing something with time. So I just wanted to share the word by definition. This is my academic path actually. I actually went to John Ruskin College, which is a nice little college in Surrey. I studied information technology, ABCE ICT. Prior to that, I left school with pretty much little to no GCSEs. I was an intelligent student, but the way that I was taught wasn't for me. And, I wasn't one to be, studying hard at such a young age, sitting indoors, smashing through textbooks. That just wasn't me. And it went to show regarding the results. But with that being said, the results I received didn't determine my future or my future success. So again, I moved on to John Ruskin, got my head down. I did a course which was the equivalent of 5 A to Cs, which put me on the ladder, so to speak. Then I did an advanced vocational certificate in ICT, and then I moved across into business information systems and design, which was a bachelor's. And before that, I actually did a H&D in computing as well, a high national diploma in computing prior to that. And there's a reason why that occurred, and I'm going to be talking about that shortly. With that being said, I want to go on to this slide. So like I was saying before, I found myself at, Kingston University, and I ended up having a lot of traumatic experiences during that time, one of which my grandmother passed away, which meant I had to go back to my family homeland, Jamaica, for a sustained period of time, which then disrupted my enrollment to get onto the Bachelor's of Science. And that was a point where I actually had to make a decision. Do I step out of education for a year, or do I continue to learn? And this is now a point in my life where life itself started throwing curveballs at me. So I decided to, to continue on in education and continue to learn, which was fine. So then we move on to my time in the bachelor's degree, which was, a really fantastic time, going into the top tier university in its field in London. But unfortunately, in that time, I actually sustained a really difficult time in which I was in a car accident, a really severe car accident where I actually ended up being hospitalized and bedridden to a degree for up to 10 weeks in my second year, which was kind of leading up into my sort of dissertation year. I remember having serious conversations with my dean of the university, and she actually asked me, Jonathan, I really think it'd be of benefit to retake the year. But I didn't want to retake the year. I had, friends from college who started in university with me. And with that being said, she said, the only option, Jonathan, would be for you to work through the summer to catch up with all of the academia that you've actually missed during the 10 weeks. So me being the happy-go-lucky guy that I am, and determined guy that I was, or still am, I should say, I decided, you know what, I'm going to work through the summer. Now, I worked through the summer. All I had was iffy broadband at the time, because broadband was pretty new. A massive pile of textbooks, and like these really thick, horrible, dusty textbooks from the library. And that was it. University was closed. I didn't have anyone to lean on. I didn't have anyone to ask questions to. It was just literally my resolve, my belief in myself, and getting the dissertation and additional work done to get onto the third year and qualify, which I did. I managed to get all passes in the relevant subjects. So with that being said, let's fast forward a year, still at Kingston University, still having completed all of my grades, made it to graduation. And let's talk about results day, because that's a massive day when you've gone through the whole academic journey, I should say, unless you're going to continue on to do a master's. When you've gone from school to college to university, that last results day is really important. And I actually had a shock, because what happened with me, this is my own personal experience, because I worked through the summer, my actual result was, there was a glass ceiling that I wasn't aware of. The result I actually had on paper was a 2-2, which was something I was really happy to have and achieve, despite all of the hardships that I went through. But what happened, because I worked through the summer, there was a caveat, which meant you could only receive a third class honours degree. I didn't know that. So I actually went into, the office with some of these individuals, and I said, I didn't know this was the case. And they were like, yeah, this is the rules. This is how it goes. Have a good afternoon, basically. Well done, Jonathan. So imagine that, knowing that you've achieved something which is worth more, but the world, the industry are going to now see that what I have to put down on paper would actually be a third class honours degree, which was like a bit upsetting, but at the same time, I was really happy to have achieved that. So with that being said, I managed to get to graduations with my friend, and we celebrated at the Barbican, and we had a really good time of it. But with that being said, this is what perseverance was about. Throughout, my academic lifetime, I should say, my academic period, I was having these instances where my resolve was being tested. Jonathan, are you going to work through the summer when it's 27 degrees and your friends are going on holiday, or, meeting up for drinks or playing football or whatever we were doing at that period of time? My instant response was always no. My instant response was working till 2 a.m., writing these dissertations, reading these books, and just trying to figure out and understand what was needed to be done to achieve the end goal, which was graduation. With that being said, I made it through, which was fantastic, So I'm going to move on. So now let's talk about yourselves on the call. What are you going to do now that, you've heard a little bit about my academic struggles and stories and perseverance? What situations do you currently find yourself in right now as you sit down and listen to this talk? What are the things that, we're all saying, we've got problems and I want to achieve something? I mean, I could even talk about, being the founder of Ideas to Action and having the coronavirus absolutely ravage what Saba and I were trying to do, which this was actually going to be an event which was going to be in a physical place. We were going to have all of these talks happening on stage, and the whole idea for this was completely different. But we decided to pivot and leverage the technology that was available to us and still provide a platform for young people to learn. That's just something to think about. What are you going to do? Think about the problems you have right now. Are these problems as big as you feel they are, or are these things that we can actually overcome with a bit of slow thinking? So with that being said, I want to talk about strengths and weaknesses in my time. So I'm going to talk about past graduation and going into my academic career, something that I talk about a lot. I'm going to talk about analytics, for example. So like I showed you guys at the beginning, I went from a pay-per-click consultant and analyst into Samsung European headquarters as a digital insight manager lead for Europe, which then led on to becoming a strategic channel analyst at Samsung's creative agency called Chael. Basically, I didn't graduate with an economics or mathematics degree. And actually, I can actually testify that I really hate numbers. I'm not a numbers person. I actually hate Excel. I don't want to be on Excel. And if I can not use Excel, then that is what I'm going to do, because I don't like it. I'm a person, I like to talk, I like to meet people, I like to problem solve in different ways. But with that being said, I am still a person who wants to learn new things because it's only going to make us stronger. But what we often find is that people always talk about, get your weaknesses up to a point. But I think it's really important to focus upon your strengths, because your strengths are going to make you happy. And with that being said, my career, like I said, I spent 4 years in data, and I got to a point I was like, you know what, I'm not doing data anymore because I'm not enjoying these jobs. I just don't want to be pulling data from systems, manipulating data, finding insights. I don't want to do it anymore. And with that being said, I realigned my career. I went into consultancy and I became a Martech manager at the Telegraph newspaper. But with that being said, when I went into the Telegraph, I now had another string to my bow where I could actually go into meetings and talk about data, talk about numbers, talking about, manipulating data to fish out insights, which would only be of benefit to the marketing technology. So it's always good to look at your weaknesses and think, you know what, I'm not actually a people person, but maybe I will do a job where I have to be more client facing. But in the future, you can still say, I'm going to go back to Excel. I love Excel. I love numbers. I really want to get into data. I want to talk about the unknown. There's a saying from a philosopher, Socrates, which is, don't quote me on this because I'm going to say this slightly wrong. I didn't write it down, but the gist of it is, I only know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. And that is something that I'm an evangelist of, not knowing where I'm going, not knowing the future. Even 2 weeks ago when this website and this whole platform was being developed, we didn't know if we were going to meet our deadlines, but we still kept going. And that's something that's really important. Everyone talks about a plan, and plans are good, but I didn't know that I was going to end up working at Microsoft, let's say, or end up at Samsung. Or sorry, having graduated with my 2.2, which then was hardballed into a third class honours degree. So not knowing the future is quite exciting. Not being in control is quite exciting to a degree. So if you're not sure about, where you're going to go, that's absolutely fine. It's so fine. Let's not stress ourselves out trying to say, I don't have a plan, but my friend's got a plan and his friend's got a plan and his dad had a plan when he was my age. My dad did as well, but I don't. My mother did, but I don't. It's absolutely fine. Not having a plan is 100% fine. So with that being said, the journey, the path, how are we gonna get to our goals? The roads, there's, many different ways to get to a particular place. Take Google Maps, for example. There's a fast route, there's a long route, there's a route with traffic, there's a route that's going through a rural road, there's a road that goes through multiple towns and cities. With that being said, everyone's journey is completely different, but the destination is the same. So think about your journey and think about the road you're going to have to take, but at the same time, do not compare your journey to your fellows, because everyone's journey is completely tailored to themselves. Every entrepreneur you're going to meet is going to tell you a different thing. Everyone that you meet in business has a different story. There is no set path. Even with education, there's probably someone who has ended up with a first-class honours degree, and they'll stand right next to me and say, Jonathan, I've never worked in any of these companies that you've worked in. Like, there's no rules to life. We always feel like there's rules to life, but there's not. And I'm learning every day. I'm learning every day that there's not rules to life. There's not a set plan to life. I think the key to life is just really enjoying it, you know, and enjoying your journey. Even when it gets hard, keep going, because I always say to myself, come Christmas Day or whatever celebratory position we find ourselves in, we're going to be laughing about this problem that we've had today. With that being said, my favorite slide, key takeaways, bit of a metaphor there. It's got nothing to do with burgers or chips. We'll go forwards. So these are just some of the takeaways that I want, you know, some of you guys to remember. I'm going to start with the middle picture of change versus old ways. I'll say, you know, be fluid, be open to change, because change is a constant in life. Change is a constant, minute to minute, hour to hour, second to second. People that don't embrace change are always the ones that are causing problems, I feel. The ones that don't want to, I don't like to use the word compromise, but they don't want to be fluid to openness and to, you know, situations that present themselves. They still want to solve problems in a fixed way. What we're finding out, even, you know, some of you attendees on this call, that look at what we've just gone through the last 4 months in the UK. If you said to yourself this time last year that we're going to be on lockdown and doing everything from home and having to order food, our weekly shops having to be delivered from Tesco's and Asda or whatever food companies we chose to use, you'd probably laugh, but here we are. So embracing change is a way to de-stress. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this one. I did actually produce this in the old world, but I'm a strong advocate of travel, because when you travel, you get to experience a lot of different cultures. You get to meet different people from different backgrounds with different problems, and it always gives you a different perspective when you come back home, you know, whether it's someone that's really, you know, rich in life, rich in experience, or someone that's not actually as rich as you and has a story to tell, and they tell you about their hardships. When you come home, it makes you appreciate what you've got even more, as an example. So I would recommend traveling. Obviously not now, because the R rates are going crazy in some of the countries we're allowed to go to. But with that being said, the future's bright. So hopefully when things normalize, we'll be able to travel. So I hope you all travel. This hexagon, I should say, fitness. I'm a strong advocate of fitness. It is my meditation. I try and run every day and do as much fitness as I can, because it helps me. You know, they say healthy body, healthy mind. I'm a massive advocate of that. Exercising helps you to get more sleep, and it just gives you time to focus purely on one thing, which is literally going step to step and not falling over or running into a tree or something like that. So it's just a soft way to meditate. If you're not one that's always exercising, start small. Like, no one's saying you've got to run a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, do 60K on your bike. You know, you can just start with putting your trainers on and going for a 5-minute jog and just building up slowly. So that is something that I recommend. And lastly, a book that I recommend to some of you young people that are going into your careers. We talk about people skills, and we talk about ways of leaving a good feeling with somebody. And this is a good book that I recommend, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a really good book. It really reaffirms things that we know, which is like good manners, good behaviors, knowing people's names and things like that. Like, there's a lot in there. But with that being said, it's a good starting block into personal development and understanding where you want to go. And lastly, I think this is my last slide actually, everyone. So don't think too much, just do what makes you happy. Again, I feel there's not really a lot of people that are evangelizing this. Even if you are liaising with other educational outfits. I've actually presented this to like students across different colleges, different faculties and different organizations. And whenever I present this slide and they ask, everyone talks about your career, everyone talks about how to get the grades, everyone talks about how to get in a job, but how many organizations are saying to you, do what makes you happy, do what makes you feel good, do what makes you have a smile on your face? These are things that are really, really important. So I'll end it there on do what makes you happy. And we are now going to, is there any questions, Saba?
We only got one which came directly to me, which was, how do you keep motivated in the face of no plan?
That's a good question. The way I feel motivated in a place of no plan is that I've actually got a goal, which is what I'm trying to achieve. And I set goals in many, many different areas. I set daily goals, which is, try and read a chapter a day, try and go for a run, try and look at like the businesses that I have. How can I make these businesses better? Whether it's my consultancy business, whether it's my clothing business, re-educate myself in some way, shape or form. These are things that are hard coded into me as a person. So even if I don't manage to tick all of the boxes across those, across all of my daily goals, if I tick off one or two, then it's progression in some way, shape or form. That is how I keep motivated in that respect.
What book are you currently reading at the moment?
Okay, so actually I'm reading Natives by Akala, actually. It's obviously in the midst of, the unfortunate situations that have happened in America. As a Black man, as a Black father, I'm constantly an advocate of re-education in any way, shape or form across many different areas of life. So even before I was reading Carla's book, I was reading a book on like marketing strategies, for example. So there's so many books, there's so much things to learn, But yeah, long and short of it, that's the book I'm currently reading. So John, hello.
How you doing?
Welcome. So everyone, we've got John Coker from Monitor Deloitte with us now. So John, do you want to share some of the stories regarding, perseverance to some of the audience today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Firstly, great talk. A lot of what you said resonated with me on my journey. We'll see some of the similarities shortly. My name is John. I work for a company called Monitor Deloitte. It is a strategy consultancy. For context, we're generally regarded as one of the top 5, top 10 strategy consultancies in any of the markets we operate in. And what does a strategy consultancy do? Effectively, we assist large companies with helping them understand what choices they need to make, when they need to make those choices, and how they need to make those choices. Choices being, anything from expanding into markets, how to navigate difficult times, increasing market share, all the general business questions that you have to ask yourself at various different points of your growth. We're there to help companies understand those across various industries. So any of the companies you deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it be your mobile phone company, where you buy your groceries, the company that's providing your TV, they've all spoken to a strategy consultancy at some point to help them understand and solidify their position in the market. And I guess that's me today. That's where I am now. In terms of my journey, I think the best way to describe it is non-linear. Most of my colleagues and people I work with, they joined straight out of university, joined the graduate scheme and have kind of been in an elevator since then, working their way through the business and picking up their skills and knowledge. I joined the business 10 months ago as a manager, which is probably the fourth rung on the ladder. And that's generally late to join a business like ours. And if I go right back to my A-levels, so 16 to 18, on a par with Jonathan's story, that was a time of some significant family trauma, house fire, bereavements, and I'm sort of working through that. It had an impact on my studies. So I left with 2 A-levels as opposed to 3, but there's a strong family ethos and education in our family. So whatever's happening, you're not allowed to use any excuses. So pushed on, did an e-commerce degree. And at that point, I did that degree because I've always been very interested in tech, very interested in the internet, very interested in how those things affect the world around us. So anyone that knows me knows generally anything in that sense. I might not understand how it works, but I love the uses of it. So I thought, right, this would be a great degree for me to do because I'm interested in it. Yeah, year and a half in, I kind of got bored of it. Wasn't really applying myself as I should have been, regardless. And I had the bright idea that actually I'm going to ditch this and I'm going to go and work. I'm going to go and pick up a career outside of this. So I left that alone, went and worked in retail. I was working for O2 at the time, and then started knocking on the door in a career in banking, retail banking specifically, looking at becoming a financial advisor, etc. Contrasted to Jonathan, I love numbers, I love maths, sort of my thing. But there was a moment where I actually thought to myself, well, you know, if something goes wrong, as inevitably life loves to do, something goes awry, are you only going to have this lane to play in? Is this the only set of skills you're giving yourself? What are you going to do? How are you going to maneuver? So at 23, I decided to go back to uni, pick up a different degree, something that interested me, but I didn't think I knew all about, which kept my motivation going, which kept me pushing through. So I went back and did a finance, money and banking degree, which is effectively an economics degree with a fancy title. I don't know why they called it that, to be honest. And as I say, it was something that interested me. It was something that I was intrigued to learn more about. I didn't feel like I knew all about it. So it kept me going all the way through. At that point, there was some trepidation. I was worried about going back to uni and being the oldest person in the room, sitting there with all the 18-year-olds. I was 23. But I have this thing in life where I like to think about my story being, you know, in despite of X happening, I achieved Y, rather than I didn't do Y because X happened, right? So I try and control the narrative. So threw that in the bin and went back and did that. Left uni at 26. You know, I'm Nigerian by heritage, and everything's about education. Everything is tapped to your age mates, your age group. So I have a nasty habit of looking at what, you know, where should I be for my age, etc. So at that point, what fueled my fire was the fact that I was effectively 5 years behind everyone else in my peer group, in my age group. That's what my brain told me. So I kind of went out and tried to hit the ground running. And then this is where my career started to build without me actually knowing it. Luckily, a friend of mine was working at a company called Lease Plan, and she knew I was about to graduate. She said, you know, if you're looking for a job, there's a job here. I'm not sure if it's entirely what you want to do, but it's a big company, you can move around. Of course, I snapped her hand out because, you know, at that point, it was 2008. There was a small, insignificant recession kicking off. I bit a hand off and went down there, and it was effectively a role in a leasing company called Lease Plan, who happened to be the largest leasing company in the world. So it was a perfect place for me to just get my foot in the door and start working out what the hell I was going to do. So landed there, was in an operations team, which was helping people who had come into financial difficulty as a result of the financial crisis refinance the payments on their cards. So it was good from a point of view of, you know, felt like I was actually doing some good, helping people out of a sticky situation. I got to learn about the business and move on. This was based in London. This was based in Wandsworth, so it was a great commute for me. I was able to use some of my skills for my degree. I got into Excel early on, so again, a bit of a contrast to Jonathan. That, you know, Excel is a friend of mine. 8 months in, then first curveball. They come in. We're closing the office. Everyone's moving to Slough. If you don't want to come to Slough, you can leave. So at that point, we've all got a decision to make. Most of us are London-based. We've got a nice, easy commute to work. Now we're looking at a circa sort of 40-mile commute each way. And as I said, I've only been there 8 months. This is my first job out of uni. It's like, welcome to the real world. So at that point, I had a decision to make and say, well, I can leave. Probably next to no compensation because I hadn't been there long. Or I can go and see what it's like to travel to Slough every day, see if I could take this opportunity to move up a bit quicker than I would have done, because people are going to leave. It's a sad fact of it, but people are going to leave. I can use that to my advantage. Lo and behold, my manager found out she was pregnant. She was going on maternity leave. I became a maternity cover manager. So I went to Slough, traveled 2 hours each way every day. And I ended up being there for another 4.5 years. And that sort of underpins my general journey and story, as in I'm willing to make the sacrifices and persevere through some of the difficulties, because the job or whatever I'm achieving or doing at the time will help the next step. And so I think the first thing for me is, you know, look at the positive you can take out of the situation before you look at the negatives, and then balance the equation from there. That's, you know, one of the first takeaways I'd like people to take from this. So yeah, I went there, and then the rest is history, as they say. So I effectively changed roles on average every year there. And so I went from managing that team to moving into a project management role, because I understood how the business works. They want me to help them deliver products and deliver projects from someone who knows how the business runs, as opposed to someone who just sits in a room and doesn't understand what we actually do on the front line. Then from that role, I got a product development manager role as well, because they said, okay, fine, you've done all that, help us design the new products that customers are going to buy. And then I worked with a strategy director at the time. He liked the work I was doing, so he created a role for me in his team, and I joined his team. So at that point, then, in this sort of 3-year timeline, I'd made significant steps. I was pretty lucky, a bit of an accelerated trajectory. And then, again, another curveball. I'm in the job 5 months. My boss leaves in fairly acrimonious circumstances. And of course, one of the things we've worked that isn't always talked about are the sort of the political side of things. And obviously I was in his camp, which made things slightly difficult after. But once again, an opportunity. So then I became a business change manager, helping them on their large projects, digital projects. And at that point, I'd started studying my master's. And one of the things that my boss at the time had helped me identify is that I needed additional tools in my bag, basically, to help me achieve what I wanted to achieve long term. I wanted to get to the top. I wanted to be a leader in a business. I wanted to be, on the C-suite, directing companies through and navigating through problems and helping them grow and create value. And he said, well, if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to do it in good time, you're going to have to go and get a master's. That's my advice to you. I didn't go to any blue chip unis. I didn't go to any Russell universities. He said, unfortunately, the way the world works is, you need to just do whatever it takes to get yourself at the front of the queue. So fine. I started studying that part-time in London. So 2 hours in the morning to work, leave work early, 2 hours into London, class for 3 hours in the evening, and then home. So my average day was about 6 a.m. to 11:30 for 2 years. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was a great time. I met great people on the masters. It helped me at work immediately because things I was learning on a Tuesday night, I was walking into meetings on a Wednesday, throwing it out there, people looking at me like, wow, this is amazing, not knowing that I picked up the night before. So it had immediate benefits. And then the opportunity came to work in London, total switch. So lease plan, automotive finance, automotive all the way. Go and work for Lloyds Bank in their risk department, working on government projects. Total change, but it was in London. It was around the corner from where I was studying. And it was another large organization. And I thought, right, I can learn from this place. It's one of the biggest companies in the UK, etc. Well, it was a learning experience. I'll put it that way. It was 6 months, a very tough 6 months. It was a very, very different environment, very different working environment, something I hadn't experienced before. So actually, whilst at the time I wasn't very happy there, if I'm honest, it was vital for where I am today. If I hadn't gone through that experience, it might not have taught me certain things. It might not have helped me make some different choices. Early on, I didn't want to be pigeonholed to one industry, which is not necessarily sensible, because if you move around too much, people feel like you're not a specialist. But I was very cognizant of the fact that I'd only worked in auto, and I thought moving around a bit could help me. So I stayed there only 6 months, jumped out the window after 6 months, went to a company called PRS for Music. Again, totally different switch. So if you look at it, I've done automotive finance, I've not gone into banking, and now I'm in media effectively. And PRS for Music is country's largest music rights organization. If you're an artist, the producer, they will go and collect the monies owed to you from people using your music. That's a very simple analogy for that business. They're effectively a finance company, to be honest. So working there was helping them perform a massive digital transformation. They were a very old school member business. They still sent things out on CD, things like that. So we were helping them bring their business into the 21st century effectively. Great job, great place to work. People were amazing. It was good for me. Again, another challenge. I like applying my skills in different industries, because I think that's the way I can maybe secure my long-term future whatever happens, right? Whatever industry is doing well or not. And then I got offered a job at Volkswagen Audi Group, once again, which I couldn't turn down, but another curveball. So this job was now in Milton Keynes, and I'd have to travel again 2 hours each way every day. And I just felt like I'd just come away from that a year ago. We were making good strides. But once again, that job was too good to turn down. I just finished my MBA. It was the perfect role to leverage that qualification. And whenever I look at a job opportunity, I always say, okay, what job does this job get me after? So when someone comes to me with a role, I say, okay, when I leave this, where am I going? And that's usually the deciding factor. And any obstacles, I'll deal with after. And, I see a couple of my friends on the call, and I talk to them about it at the time. and they'll say, look, the travel is going to be crazy, but do what you got to do, etc. So a little bit blindly, to be honest, I kind of talked myself out of looking at travel too much. I took that job, and effectively I was there to help them build their first direct-to-consumer online buying channel for cars. So they'd never sold cars directly to people before, and definitely not online. And they wanted me to help them build that. So it was a challenge I couldn't turn down. Went there just under 2 years, delivered it, the first iteration of it. It's still going now. I think they're close to 1,000 cars on there selling every day. So for me, the opportunity to do that and have that on my CV and have that experience was great. There were some great perks with the role.
So we've got one question. What is calculated risk you have taken that has paid dividends? And then another question that we have is, do you think qualifications are more important, or is life experience within the industry more beneficial?
I think you definitely need a base regarding qualifications, purely because it's the way the world works. But with that being said, once you have your base education, I don't feel that you're going to need, again, depending on where you want to go in your careers, I feel like the world's changed a lot since I was in education. And we're even seeing things where we're having bigger companies, such as like the ilk of Google, let's say, for example, that you don't need to have a degree anymore to apply for roles at some of these bigger global organizations. So I don't feel that qualifications are the be all and end all. But again, if you're trying to go into a specialist area, it's probably better to have the specialism qualified from some sort of institution. But again, with that being said, if you're a developer and all you've ever done is developed, but you've never actually been to university to get that qualification in, let's say, the programming language, you may apply for a job and say, this is what I work in, but you're going to need some guidance within the job. And this is something that we've spoken about in some of our other talks this week, is around mentorship. So you might actually win a position in a company where a manager likes you, you've interviewed well, he's saying, you know what, you don't have the qualifications, but you know how to code. I'm going to mentor you for 6 months to teach you the right way to do this. And then we're going to set you free within the business to do what you need to do with our guidance. So again, it is sort of like a two sides to a coin story.
Double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Columbus, do you want to ask your question?
So, hiya, John. Thanks for your talk. And so I'm wondering, what's a calculated risk that kind of through your development as a person you have taken that now in the place that you are has paid off?
So I think there's a few, and when I cover the last leg of my journey to where I am today, it'll probably make a bit more sense. But I think the biggest calculated risk I took was doing my MBA, actually, just because of the time and cost commitment completing that degree. And, it was 2 years. I was already, doing a lot of significant personal travel. It cost a lot of money, which meant that other life goals I had, acquiring a property, all this kind of stuff, would have to be pushed back a few years. And I've seen in the past, and as Jonathan alluded to, we're getting to a point where actually, having a first and all of this stuff might not necessarily nail you, that job that's incrementally better or not. So that was a calculated risk, but it's paid off because, the role I'm in now, well, the last 2 roles I've had are clearly as a result of me having that MBA. My employers will tell you that. They told me that quite blankly. So it's paid off, and it's one of the things that will continue to pay off. So I'll probably really leverage it properly in my next role or the one after, when I really step into leadership roles. And that's where that calculated risk will have paid off. So yeah, I'll definitely say do my MBA. Also, I want to add to that, John, as well, regarding calculated risks. From my standpoint, having not gone down the MBA route like John, but in my early career, I had the opportunity to work at Microsoft. And at the time, that was like a game changer for me. In my head, I kind of knew that, getting my foot in the door at Microsoft was going to open doors for me in the future, but it really has paid dividends to get into that sort of company. But that was my 3rd job, I believe. So it wasn't like an immediate thing, but it got to a point where my previous experiences led to that bigger position in a bigger company. And it's like when you get that bigger company on your CV at whatever period of your career, you pretty much see a seismic shift
in the sort of caliber of companies that are interested in you after that. Yeah, so calculated risks are definitely things to consider.
I think for me, it's all about saying, okay, what is the opportunity? What can an opportunity do for me? Before you look at the reasons why you shouldn't do it. For me, ultimate bottom line was, what does this job do for my direction of travel? What does it do for my career? And the overarching thing for me is, how can I put myself in a position where I'm affecting change more than change is affecting me? That is the key. The power of perseverance is definitely something I believe in.
2 last questions, actually. What does perseverance mean for you in 2020, Jonathan? And wrapping up, what is your life goals and your ultimate ambition for 2020?
Wow. What perseverance means for me is I'm passionate about, educating young people. And I want young people to understand that the world will not be handed to you on a plate, and that you have to work hard to get into the places where you want to be. Success isn't handed out. They say hard work beats talent. You can be talented, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not prepared to graft and train and upskill and persevere, then it's not going to be resolute. It's not going to amount to anything. So that's what perseverance means to me. And this is why, outside of Ideas to Action, I go around to colleges and universities and talk about, perseverance for young people, for them to feel empowered, to know that someone that was once as young as them can also overcome life challenges. Also, with that being said, my life goal, my ultimate ambition, I'm a creator, personally speaking. Like, Ideas to Action is a product that I've created with Saba. I'm going to continue to keep creating. I'm going to keep evolving. I'm going to keep pivoting. I've got a clothing company which I'm a co-founder of, and I'm also a consultant for myself. I work for myself, and I just want to keep creating. I don't feel like the life goal is to keep doing. The life goal is never to submit to defeat. It's about learning, upskilling, educating others, sharing knowledge. I feel in London, which is such a creative city, there's still not enough knowledge sharing. There's still too many doors that are closed. We should have networks which make information more fluid for young people. Even this product that we've created, we've networked with some massive organizations, but there's still a lot more work to be done. So fluidity of information and creating and upskilling, educating, collaborating, that is something I'm really passionate about. And you're going to see a lot more from myself, Saba, Ideas to Action, and me. So yeah, that's my long answer there. John, over to you.
John, we're going to ask you the same question. What does perseverance mean for you in 2020, and what are your life goals and ambitions for 2020?
So for me, perseverance in 2020 means just getting to the end of the year and being able to, as I said at the beginning, to say, despite everything that's happened in 2020, I have achieved X, Y, and Z. An achievement for me isn't just about, anything monetary, etc. It means achievement. So whatever goals you set yourself, whether they're personal, health, your family, certain targets, learning a new skill, perseverance is getting through that, putting in place whatever you needed to put in place to work around the difficult conditions of this year. My life goals, to be honest, my life goals are to, very specifically, to be someone that leads or grows a large business or a large company, because I just feel like that's something that's within my gift to do. And having been in those environments and seeing people do them, I think they could be run slightly differently. I think they could be done to benefit the community more. I think they could be done in a way that helps solve some of our socioeconomic problems. So my life goal is to really follow that path as far as I can, and hopefully put myself in a position to have a real tangible effect on some of those things. And then at that point, it's just to give back. Things like this grow things like this, help young people who have already chosen the wrong path and trying to find their way out. So, ex-offenders, etc. If I look back, 30 years from now, if I've, got to a position where I'm able to lead a company so it has all those effects on society, and put in place some things that the generations after me can do that to help each other and help those less fortunate, then I'll be happy.
Amazing answer, John. Amazing answer. So with that being said, we have got to the end of the talk, the Power of Perseverance. John, thanks so much for contributing to today. As a businessman myself, I think it's important that that we show young people that, you know, we're in businesses, but, you know, we've overcome a lot of challenges to get where we are. Okay, so thanks for that. So I just want to say thanks everyone that's tuned in this afternoon. It's been an amazing session today. Thank you. See you then. Bye.
Bye.